Our biology teacher blocked the door during a carbon monoxide evacuation and said anyone who left would get 0 on the midterm, worth 80% of our grade. When was your teacher too prideful to admit she was wrong? I was half asleep in Ms. Wellington's biology class when an evacuation announcement jolted me awake. Gas line rupture, carbon monoxide leak building C, lethal concentrations, all student and staff evacuate immediately. We'd never practiced a drill like this. Survival instinct told us to just run, so that's what we did. But Ms. Wellington physically blocked the door with that face she only makes when she feels her authority being disrespected. Nobody leaves. We're in the middle of a project. She sounded like a pissed off DMV employee. Nobody scheduled an evacuation drill today. I tried to speak up. Ms. Wellington, you know this is a pathetic excuse to skip my class. Now get back to your seats, or you're all getting 0 on the midterm worth 80%. We sat down and listened to her big ol' rant about lazy kids doing anything to get out of school, how her generations didn't have phones or iPads. This was the thing about Ms. Wellington. She was a drill sergeant for certain things and lazier than Patrick Star for others. She'd mark you wrong even if you were right if you didn't work the problem out her way, then turn around and stumble her way through an entire lesson because she had no preparation. Our class once coordinated and we all forgot what page we were on just to see if she paid attention to what she taught, and we spent the whole class trying to find the chapter. She stepped away from the door just long enough to grab her attendance clipboard. The PA crackled again, more urgent. This is not a drill. Carbon monoxide levels critical. Explosion risk. Evacuate now. See? Ms. Wellington actually smiled. They're overselling it. Carbon monoxide doesn't explode. It's odorless and colorless. Basic chemistry. One of the girls explained that gas and CO2 leaking together creates a massive explosion. I said, Ms. Wellington started, anyone who walks out that door fails this semester. Your parents will love explaining that to colleges. She positioned herself back at the door like a nightclub bouncer. Besides, if there really was carbon monoxide, we'd already be unconscious. You all look fine to me. Everyone slowly sat back down. Nobody wanted to risk their GPA. That's when Rick's nose started bleeding. Then Mackenzie put her head down, groaning about a headache. The PA basically screamed now. Building C evacuate immediately. Emergency services en route. This is not a drill. My head was starting to pound. That heavy, weird pressure behind your eyes. I looked out the window. The entire school was on the football field. Every other classroom was dark. We were the only light still on in the whole building. I yelled at Ms. Wellington, who took one look outside and with a full serious face said, gym class. The principal was literally on his phone, ringing her, pointing at our classroom, basically having a breakdown. Fire trucks were pulling up, but Ms. Wellington literally shut the blinds. Avoid distractions. Surprise pop quiz as punishment. She went to her drawer and took out a stack of papers. Jenny threw up on her paper right as it was handed to her. I remember seeing my buddy Mike literally pass out, just slumped over and hit the floor. That's when we couldn't take it. I stood up and started walking to the door, but Ms. Wellington got there first. She didn't just block it either. She locked it with a goddamn padlock. This coordinated performance is Oscar worthy. Did you all plan this on TikTok? The fake fainting? The vomiting? Anything to get out my class, huh? Our phones were going insane. My mom texted, news says carbon monoxide leak at your school. Are you safe? Then my boyfriend from building A. Everyone evacuated. Are you safe? The sirens outside weren't normal fire truck sirens anymore. It was that specific horn, the hazmat one. The one they only use when stuff is about to go really, really bad. This is obviously the administration trying to sabotage my tenure review, Wellington announced, like she'd solved a mystery. They know I have the highest fail rate. They want me gone. So they staged this elaborate hoax. Did you get special training to become this stupid, or are you a natural? Mackenzie yelled at Wellington. Young lady, I will. My dad's a firefighter. Mackenzie yelled over her. That's the catastrophic leak siren. We need to leave now. Sit down, Mackenzie, or... Mackenzie didn't let her finish. She grabbed a lab stool and started smashing the window. The glass was thick, but starting to crack. Ms. Wellington started screaming when everyone joined in smashing the window, but there was nothing she could do. The second that window broke, half the class scrambled to get out. The other half ran back to the unconscious students and started dragging them to safety. By the time everyone was out, Building D, literally 100 feet away from us, was on fire. 8 kids were unconscious from carbon monoxide poisoning. 3 ended up in the ICU. The firefighters had to climb in and physically carry her out while she protested. Everybody lived. But here's the messed up part, what nobody talks about. The security footage from the night before showed Ms. Wellington in the building at 2 a.m. in the basement, near the gas lines. And when they investigated why she wouldn't let us leave, why she locked us in to die, what they found in her desk explained everything. So the firefighters are going through Ms. Wellington's desk while she's still screaming about conspiracies, and this one guy pulls out this crumpled letter. He smooths it out and his whole face just changes. Chief, you need to see this. It was her tenure denial from 2 days ago, but it wasn't just crumpled up. She'd written all over it in red pen. These desperate notes in the margins about needing this job, about having nothing left, about how they couldn't do this to her after 15 years. There were calculations everywhere, bills circled and added up, numbers that didn't add up no matter how she arranged them. That's when Riley Evans, our janitor who's been at the school forever, walks up to the detective looking sick to his stomach. Detective, I need to tell you something, Riley says, wringing his hands. Last week, Ms. Wellington asked me these weird questions about the gas lines in Building C, real specific stuff, where the shutoff valves were, how the ventilation worked. I thought maybe she was planning some kind of science demonstration, but now, he trails off, staring at our classroom where they're still pulling kids out through the broken window. The detective pulls out his phone and shows us security footage. This is from 2 nights ago at 2 a.m. There's Mrs. Wellington in the grainy video, just standing outside Building C's utility room, not doing anything, just standing there staring at the door for 10 whole minutes. Then she walks away, comes back 5 minutes later with what looks like a wrench from her car, stares at the door again, and finally leaves. That's not suspicious at all, Mackenzie mutters. Ms. Wellington completely loses it when she sees the video. That's fake. They're editing footage. This is a setup. She actually lunges at the detective, trying to grab his phone. 2 firefighters have to physically restrain her, and she's still screaming as they drag her toward a police car. I was protecting them. I was protecting my students from a fake drill. I'm sitting on the back of an ambulance with this oxygen mask on my face that tastes like plastic when my mom's car screeches into the parking lot. She doesn't even close her door, just runs straight at me, practically rips the ambulance door off its hinges. Oh my god, she keeps saying, grabbing my face, my arms, checking me over like I might disappear. She's crying so hard she can't even form real words, just these broken sounds. The paramedic tries to tell her I'm okay, but she won't let go of me. They're loading Mike onto a stretcher nearby, still completely unconscious. His parents' car pulls up right behind the ambulance, and his mom gets out already screaming, Mike, Mike! When she sees him on that stretcher, not moving, she just collapses. His dad has to hold her up while she wails. I've never heard a sound like that come from a person. Mackenzie's dad shows up in full firefighter gear from Station 12 across town. He wasn't even on duty but heard it on the radio and drove here going like 90. When he sees Mackenzie, he grabs her so tight I actually hear her gasp. You broke the window? He asks, his voice cracking. Yeah, Dad. That's my girl. That's my brave girl. He's crying into her hair. This huge firefighter just sobbing while holding his daughter. The news vans start rolling up and suddenly we're surrounded by reporters with microphones. Can you tell us what happened? happened? How long were you locked in? Did the teacher know about the gas leak? Parents form this protective wall around us kids. Mackenzie's dad actually shoves a camera away. My mom pulls me behind her and tells a reporter to get the hell away from my child or I'll shove that microphone somewhere real uncomfortable. At the hospital, the waiting room is chaos. Parents are screaming at anyone in a suit. The principal, school board members who showed up, anyone who looks official. How does a teacher lock kids in during a gas leak? Where were you? My son could have died. A doctor in scrubs finally comes out looking exhausted. The 3 students in the ICU, Rick Morrison, Jenny Chen, and Mike Torres, they're stable. They're on hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Jenny had a seizure from the carbon monoxide, but her brain scans look good. She should recover fully. Should? Jenny's mom asks, her voice tiny. Carbon monoxide poisoning can be unpredictable, but we're optimistic. The detective shows up at the hospital with a recorder. I need to get statements while everything's fresh. I especially need to know about the midterm threat. I wonder what's really going through Ms. Wellington's mind when she's physically blocking that door. There's something deeply unsettling about a teacher choosing her project schedule over those evacuation warnings, and that DMV employee comparison really makes me curious about her actual priorities right now. I tell him everything. How she said we'd get zeros on the midterm worth 80% of our grade if we left. How she physically blocked the door. How she said colleges would find out. He keeps asking me to repeat the exact words she used. She's been acting weird for weeks. I add, super strict about random stuff, but then completely unprepared for actual lessons. Last week she gave us a pop quiz on stuff we hadn't even covered yet, then got mad when everyone failed. Mackenzie's giving her statement with her dad there, and when she gets to the part about Ms. Wellington calling it a fake evacuation, her dad's hands ball into fists so tight his knuckles go white. She said what? He asks quietly, which is somehow scarier than yelling. She said they were overselling it. That carbon monoxide doesn't explode. Jesus Christ. Her dad mutters, basic chemistry, my ass. Next morning, I wake up to texts from everyone. The news is showing Ms. Wellington getting arrested at her apartment complex. She's still in yesterday's clothes, hair all crazy, screaming at the cameras. The school set me up. They wanted me gone. This was their plan. The principal goes on TV looking like he aged 10 years overnight. Dark circles under his eyes, his voice shaking. Effective immediately. School will be closed for the remainder of the week while we conduct a full safety review. We are cooperating fully with the investigation. Someone off camera yells, why didn't you break down the door? He just stares at them, then walks away. Everyone's saying parents want him fired too. That afternoon, Mike finally wakes up in the ICU. His mom texts my mom. He's confused, keeps asking what happened, and his head hurts so bad they have to keep the lights off, but he's awake. He's talking. Jenny wakes up the next day, but she can't remember anything from yesterday at all. Not the gas leak, not the evacuation, not even coming to school. The seizure scrambled her short-term memory. Her parents are told it might come back, might not. Rick's having a different problem. His nose won't stop bleeding. Turns out the carbon monoxide triggered some underlying blood disorder nobody knew he had. His platelets aren't working right. He needs transfusion after transfusion. His mom posts on Facebook asking for blood donors. 3 days later, we're called to the district office for official statements. The building smells like old coffee and disappointment. They want to know everything about how Ms. Wellington acted before this happened. She'd been giving pop quizzes almost every day, I tell them, like she was trying to fail as many people as possible before the semester ended. Another kid mentions finding her asleep at her desk during lunch multiple times. Someone else says she'd been wearing the same clothes for days. The fire investigator, Dahlia Hart, sits us down in a conference room. She's got kind eyes, but her voice is all business. We found out Ms. Wellington was living in her car. There was an eviction notice in her desk dated 3 weeks ago. She couldn't make rent after the tenure denial meant no summer teaching. Riley Evans is brought in to explain what he found. He pulls out photos of the gas valve. Someone definitely messed with it, but they didn't know what they were doing. See these scratch marks? They tried to close it, but actually made it worse. The safety mechanism got bypassed. If they'd left it alone, it would have shut off automatically. So she caused the leak trying to stop a leak that didn't exist? Mackenzie's dad asks. That's what it looks like. The next morning, District Attorney Leandro Robles holds a press conference. He's this tall guy with gray temples who looks like he hasn't slept in days. After reviewing all evidence, we're charging Mrs. Wellington with 8 counts of reckless endangerment and 8 counts of false imprisonment. A reporter shouts, what's the maximum sentence? Each endangerment charge carries up to 5 years. False imprisonment, 3 years each. We're talking potentially 64 years. My mom gasps next to me. We're watching from home because I can't handle the crowd of reporters yet. That afternoon, Ms. Wellington appears in court via video link from jail. She looks smaller somehow, wearing this orange jumpsuit that's too big for her. Her lawyer, Abigail McLean, is this sharp-dressed woman who speaks in this calm, measured voice. Your Honor, my client was experiencing a severe mental health crisis brought on by financial desperation. She'd just lost her tenure, was living in her car, and was about to lose that too. She wasn't thinking clearly. The judge, this older woman with reading glasses on a chain, isn't buying it. Counselor, your client locked children in a room filling with carbon monoxide. Mental health crisis or not, she's a danger to the community. Bail is denied. Ms. Wellington starts sobbing on the screen, not the angry crying from before, this broken, desperate sound. I never meant to hurt them. I thought it was fake. Please. The screen goes black. A week passes. Jenny's parents are the first to file a lawsuit. Their lawyer holds this big press conference outside the school district building, waving a folder thick as a phone book. The Chen family is seeking $10 million in damages. Jenny Chen suffered a seizure that has permanently affected her memory. She'll need specialized care for years. The school district knew Ms. Wellington was unstable. There were warning signs for weeks, yet they did nothing. By end of the day, 7 more families have filed. The local news keeps a running tally like it's some kind of scoreboard. Lawsuit total, $47 million and counting. The school's insurance company sends these investigators who dress like FBI agents but smile too much. They pull us out of class one by one, asking the same questions over and over. Did Ms. Wellington seem normal before this happened? Define normal, I tell the guy interviewing me. He's got this fake concerned face that reminds me of a car salesman. Was she acting differently than usual? She was always weird, but yeah, the last few weeks were extra weird. She gave us a quiz on stuff from 3 chapters ahead. When we all failed, she accused us of not paying attention. He writes everything down in this little notebook, nodding like he cares. The school board meeting that Thursday is insane. They have to move it to the gym because so many parents show up. The board members sit behind this long table looking like they're facing a firing squad. How does a teacher override an evacuation? This dad in a business suit is standing at the microphone, his face bright red. My daughter could have died because you people didn't have proper protocols. The board president, this woman who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else, keeps saying, we're reviewing our procedures over and over, like it's a magic spell that'll make everyone calm down. Mackenzie's dad gets up to speak and the whole gym goes quiet. When a firefighter in full uniform walks to the mic, people listen. I've been a firefighter for 18 years. In all that time, I've never heard of a teacher locking students in during an evacuation. You wanna know why? Because it's literally insane. The fact that she could even do it means your entire system failed. Someone starts clapping, then everyone's clapping. The board members just sit there looking at their hands. That's when they show us the other footage. Stuff from the past month we didn't even know existed. There's Ms. Wellington screaming at Riley Evans because he was mopping near her classroom during her prep period. Another video shows her in the teacher's lounge at 11 p.m., just sitting there staring at nothing. In one clip, she's in her empty classroom throwing textbooks at the wall, one after another, like she's trying to break something. We had 3 formal complaints about her in the last 6 weeks, the principal admits, his voice barely above a whisper. 2 from parents about unfair grading. 1 from a substitute who said she was hostile and erratic. And you did nothing? Someone yells from the crowd. We were following the union protocols for documentation before taking action. The crowd erupts. People are standing up, shouting, pointing at the board. Security has to escort the board members out through a back door. 2 weeks crawl by. Rick finally gets discharged, but he looks like a ghost. His mom posts on Facebook that he needs these special shots every day that cost $800 each. Insurance is fighting them on coverage because it's experimental treatment. When Mike comes back to school, it's awful. First period, someone drops a textbook and he literally dives under his desk. The teacher tries to help, but Mike's already hyperventilating, tears streaming down his face. They have to call his mom to pick him up. I can't stop thinking we're trapped, he tells me later on the phone. Every time I'm in a classroom, I'm looking for exits. I count them. I plan escape routes. I can't focus on anything else. Jenny's different. She comes back acting almost normal, but then she'll stop mid-sentence and look confused. Wait, did we have homework? She asks me in English. Jenny, we turned it in 5 minutes ago. She stares at her desk where her homework sits, clearly turned in. Oh, right, sorry. The worst part is when she cries because she knows she's forgetting things but can't stop it from happening. The school goes overboard with safety changes. They remove every lock that could trap anyone anywhere. The janitors have to use special keys now that only work from the inside. They paint all the exits neon yellow with arrows pointing the way out. They install these emergency buttons in every classroom that directly call 911, bypassing the office completely. Ms. Wellington's preliminary hearing is a circus. They make us testify one by one. I'm up first. My hand's shaking so bad I can barely hold the microphone. She said anyone who left would get a 0 on the midterm. I tell the court. She said it was worth 80% of our grade. Ms. Wellington's car bedroom situation explains the wrinkled clothes, but not the door-blocking hobby. Turns out trying to fix a gas leak you accidentally caused is like fixing a bad haircut with garden shears, only with more lawyers involved. That we'd fail the semester. And you believed her? The prosecutor asks. She was our teacher. We were taught to listen to teachers. Ms. Wellington's lawyer cross-examines me like I'm the criminal. Isn't it true you and your classmates often tried to get out of Ms. Wellington's class? What? You mentioned coordinating to pretend you forgot what chapter you were on. Sounds like you enjoyed disrupting her teaching. Mackenzie's dad actually stands up in the gallery. Are you seriously blaming the kids? The judge bangs her gavel. Sir, you need to sit down or leave. But you can see some jury members nodding at him, glaring at the defense lawyer. When Mackenzie testifies about breaking the window, she's stone-faced, speaking in this flat voice like she's reading a weather report. I knew we were dying. I could feel it. My dad taught me the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, headache, nausea, confusion. We had all of them, so I broke the window. You could have seriously injured your classmates with flying glass, the defense lawyer says. They would have been dead if I hadn't. The lawyer has nothing to say to that. The judge rules there's enough evidence for a full trial. Ms. Wellington breaks down completely, wailing as they lead her out in handcuffs. I was trying to maintain order. I was doing my job. 2 months drag by. The principal sends out an email saying he's retiring at end of the semester. I cannot continue knowing I failed to protect the students in my care, he writes. Every day I think about what would have happened if those brave students hadn't broken that window. The new principal they bring in, Priscilla Odom, is nothing like him. First day, she calls a mandatory all-staff meeting. Every single person in this building will complete emergency response training. If you refuse, you'll be terminated immediately. No exceptions, no union protection. Child safety trumps everything. 3 teachers quit on the spot. Good riddance. She makes us do monthly evacuation drills, different types each time. Fire, earthquake, active shooter, chemical leak. Teachers who don't evacuate their classes immediately get written up. Second offense, they're suspended. There is no third offense. 3 months after everything, the therapy sessions start. The district pays for them after the lawsuits start piling up, probably hoping it'll make them look better in court. Mike, Jenny, Rick and I sit in this circle with a therapist who speaks in this soft voice like we might shatter. I keep smelling gas, Mike admits. Even when there's no gas, I smell it everywhere. That's a trauma response, the therapist says. Your brain is trying to protect you by staying hypervigilant. Great, so my brain's broken, Mike mutters. Your brain is doing exactly what it should after what you experienced. Rick shows us his arms, bruises everywhere from the daily shots. The doctors say maybe 6 more months of treatment, maybe a year. They don't really know. Jenny doesn't say much. When the therapist asks her how she's feeling, she just shrugs. I don't remember feeling anything. I don't remember that day at all. Sometimes I think everyone's making it up, like it's some elaborate prank. Then I see the news clips and it's like watching someone else's life. The trial finally starts 4 months after everything. The courthouse is packed every single day. They have to use overflow rooms with video feeds because so many people want to watch. They bring in the gas valve as evidence, this twisted piece of metal with obvious tool marks on it. Riley Evans testifies again, explaining how someone who didn't understand the mechanism tried to force it closed but actually broke the safety features. If they'd left it alone, the automatic shutoff would have engaged when it detected the leak, he says. But the damage bypassed all the safeties. It was like taking the batteries out of a smoke detector during a fire. Ms. Wellington finally admits she touched the valve. She takes the stand in this gray suit that hangs off her now. She's lost so much weight in jail. I smelled something weird 2 nights before, she says, her voice barely audible. I thought maybe if I could fix it myself it would show initiative, help with my tenure review. So you tampered with equipment you didn't understand? The prosecutor asks. I was trying to help. You were trying to save your job, and it nearly cost 8 children their lives. The prosecutor pulls up her bank records on a screen. 3 months behind on car payments. Eviction notice filed. Credit cards maxed out. You were desperate, weren't you? Desperate enough to do anything to keep your position? I needed this job, she whispers. It was all I had left. So when the evacuation happened, you thought missing it would hurt your tenure review? I thought it was fake. I thought the administration was testing me, seeing if I could maintain classroom control during a disruption. Even after multiple announcements saying it was real, I wasn't thinking clearly. No, the prosecutor says. You were thinking very clearly. You were thinking about yourself, only yourself. The defense brings in this psychiatrist who starts talking about acute stress-induced decision paralysis and other fancy terms. The guy's wearing this expensive suit and keeps adjusting his glasses like he's in a movie. Ms. Wellington was experiencing what we call a dissociative episode, he says, pointing at some brain scans on a screen. Her prefrontal cortex, the part that makes rational decisions, was essentially offline. The prosecutor stands up. Doctor, are you saying she didn't know locking children in a room with carbon monoxide was dangerous? I'm saying she couldn't process that information correctly in her mental state, but she could process that they'd fail her midterm if they left? The psychiatrist starts stammering. The jury members are all leaning forward, and one woman in the front row is shaking her head. When it's time for victim impact statements, Rick's mom goes first. She's holding this thick folder of medical bills, her hands trembling so bad the papers rustle. My son needs injections every single day, she says, her voice cracking. $800, each one. The insurance company calls it experimental. You know what I call it? Keeping my baby alive. She turns to look directly at Ms. Wellington. He was perfectly healthy before you locked him in that room. Now he might need these shots for the rest of his life. Mike's dad takes the stand next. This big construction worker guy who looks like he could bench press a car, but when he starts talking about Mike's panic attacks, he breaks down completely. completely. He can't sleep. He wakes up screaming that he's trapped. We had to move his bedroom to the first floor because he needs to see an exit. My boy, who used to love school, now throws up every morning before class. He wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. She didn't just poison their bodies, she poisoned their minds. Jenny's mom can barely get through her statement. My daughter doesn't remember her own birthday party from the week before. She looks at photos of herself and asks who that girl is. The doctors say the memories might come back, but they also might not. Imagine your child looking at you sometimes like you're a stranger because she can't remember things you did together. The jury looks sick. 2 of them are crying openly. After 3 days of deliberation, we're all called back to court. The whole courtroom is packed, standing room only. Ms. Wellington sits at the defense table, gripping her lawyer's hand so tight I can see her knuckles white from across the room. The jury foreman stands up, this older black man with a deep voice. On the count of reckless endangerment in the first degree, count 1, we find the defendant guilty. He reads it 7 more times. Guilty, guilty, guilty. On the count of false imprisonment, count 1, we find the defendant guilty. 7 more times. Ms. Wellington doesn't faint like in the movies. She just sits there, staring at nothing, like her brain can't process what's happening. Her lawyer whispers something, but Wellington doesn't respond. She's just gone, empty. The judge schedules sentencing for 2 weeks later. As they lead Ms. Wellington out, she finally looks at us students sitting in the gallery. For just a second, I swear she looks confused, like she doesn't understand why we're all here. The sentencing hearing is even worse than the verdict. The judge, this stern woman who reminds me of my grandmother when she's disappointed, doesn't hold back. Ms. Wellington, you were entrusted with the safety of children, not just their education, their lives. And when faced with a choice between their safety and your job evaluation, you chose yourself. She shuffles some papers. The court has received over 40 letters from parents, students, and community members. Not one speaks in your defense. Wellington's lawyer tries one more time. Your Honor, my client has no prior criminal record. She's been an educator for 15 years. 15 years of experience should have taught her that student safety comes first. Always. No exceptions. The judge looks directly at Wellington. You turned a classroom into a gas chamber and used grades as the lock. I sentence you to 12 years in state prison. The courtroom erupts. Some parents are cheering, others crying. Wellington has to be basically carried out by the bailiffs. Her leg's not working right. The school district settles all the lawsuits 2 months later. They won't tell us exact numbers, but the next week they announce they're cutting the music program, art classes, and all sports except football and basketball. Budget constraints, the new principal says at the assembly, but everyone knows where the money went. 5 months after everything, we finally have to take that biology midterm. How does someone's brain just shut off like that when the psychiatrist was talking about her prefrontal cortex? The way Ms. Wellington kept saying she was trying to help while the prosecutor showed all her money problems makes me wonder if people can trick themselves into believing their own stories when they're desperate enough. The substitute teacher, this soft-spoken guy who treats us like we might break, keeps saying, just do your best over and over. Nobody talks during the test. No jokes, no whispering, nothing. When the timer goes off, we all just quietly turn in our papers and leave. I don't even care what grade I get. The local news does this big follow-up story 6 months later. They interview all of us in the gym, the same gym where parents screamed at the school board. Mike sits there in his Letterman jacket, but you can see his hands shaking. I have panic attacks every day, sometimes multiple times. I'm on 3 different medications just to function. Jenny's next to him, looking at note cards because she doesn't trust her memory. I have to write everything down now. Everything. If I don't, it's just gone. My parents put labels on everything in our house. My room, the bathroom, even my own photos. Rick shows the camera his medical alert bracelet. If I get any infection, any injury, I could bleed out. The carbon monoxide permanently damaged my platelets. This bracelet might save my life someday. The reporter asks Mackenzie what she wants people to know. That we almost died because someone thought their job review was more important than our lives. And that if I hadn't broken that window, she doesn't finish. She doesn't need to. Mackenzie ends up getting early admission to 3 colleges. She picks the one with the best emergency management program. Her dad starts going around to different schools, teaching kids the difference between real emergencies and drills. If an adult tells you to ignore an evacuation alarm, he always says, you run anyway. Detention is better than dead. Our last day of senior year, they have us all do this traditional walk through the school. When we pass Building C, everyone goes quiet. They've got construction barriers up. They're completely gutting and rebuilding it with new ventilation systems, emergency exits every 30 feet, and windows that can be opened from inside. At graduation, before they start calling names, the principal asks for a moment of silence. For the Building C survivors, she says, who showed us that sometimes breaking the rules is the only way to survive. Ms. Wellington's name has been scrubbed from everything. Her Teacher of the Year plaques from 2018 and 2019, gone. Her photo in the yearbook archives, cut out. It's like the school wants to pretend she never existed. After graduation, Mike, Jenny, Rick, Mackenzie, and I meet up at this little coffee shop downtown. We don't talk about that day. We talk about college, about summer plans, about normal stuff, but there's this understanding between us. We share something nobody else will ever really get. You know what's weird? Mike says, stirring his coffee. I still have the quiz, the one she gave us during the leak. It's got Jenny's puke stain on it and everything. Why'd you keep it? I ask. Evidence at first. Then, I don't know. Proof it really happened, I guess. Sometimes it feels like a nightmare I made up. It wasn't, Jenny says quietly, even if I can't remember it. A few weeks before college, I'm packing up my room when I find my old biology notebook. All of Ms. Wellington's crazy notes about proper format, her aggressive red pen marks, her see me after class warnings. I sit there for a minute, then walk straight to the trash and throw it in. Some things you don't need to remember. The day before I leave for college, my mom insists on driving past the school. They've made so many changes, it barely looks the same. New emergency exits with bright red frames. Alert buttons visible from the street. Signs everywhere. Student safety first. No exceptions. You okay? Mom asks, watching me stare at Building C. Yeah, I tell her. And for the first time, I actually mean it. I really am. Thanks for letting me poke around and ask questions with you today. It's been good hanging out. Until we see each other again. If you made it to the end, drop a comment. I love reading all your comments.